morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is another episode of DNA Lunch and Learn. This week I have a special co-host, Jennifer, joining us, where we were going to be talking about bridging the gap between finance and operations, finance and sales. Both options are open for today's conversation. Jennifer, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Wongsokerto. I am currently business controller at the Partina and EasyPay group. And I have been a long-standing partner of Rahim, working on various projects where we've been on opposite sides of the table, same side of the table, and then very, very opposite sides of the table. So I guess I guess we can share our experiences.
Yeah, I think the amazing thing, if you look back at our history, is although we were on the really opposite side of the table, somehow we always found a middle way, a balance between how to move forward. And one of the things I always appreciated about you, I'm going to start with a lot of appreciation in the beginning, is that you were one of the business controllers / finance people I worked with who had that forward-leaning vision. We came up with ideas and concepts. We want to always have more money. That was always our game. We needed more because you need to invest more to grow more. And somehow you always came up with, okay, let's have a conversation about the future. Let's have a conversation about asking the right questions, challenging us for our business cases, and at the same time, being open to reallocating budgets. Now, that's not always the case. I don't want to say 95% of the time, but in most cases, when we as the business comes to finance often is seen as a blocker and not always as a partner. And that's actually what I want to talk about today. How can we better partner with finance to achieve our overall objectives? Is finance actually that monster, that Godzilla there trying to kill us? Or is finance there actually to help us be more successful? And how can you achieve that? Because it requires a different way of communication, a different way of building your cases. It also requires, I think, thinking about how can we get benefit as organization? Is finance really negative towards us, or are they blocking us from the budgets? It's not always the case, but it is perceived in a lot of cases. Hence, for today, we want to talk about that topic. So, Jennifer, we had a bit of a pre-conversation. I know you have a beautiful case.
Let me see if I can share my screen. Let me know if you see me.
Yeah, perfect.
All right. So, how to tackle the monster, right, Rahim? Yeah. Well, basically, let's start with what is the monster's mindset? And in the end is everyone comes to the meeting from their own target, from their own goals to achieve. And so the thing or the what every finance person breathes on a daily basis is just this. It's tables and tables of figures and numbers and variances and comparisons and the like. Okay, that means that we're very bound to three paradigms: figures, rules, and expectations. Okay, so we translate everything that is being said in the work office into numbers. We're not allowed to translate that willy-nilly. And then on top of that, we have our boss telling us it's not allowed to be more than that, or we need at least that. Okay, so we are drilled to come with a certain shape. Now you can call it what you want. In the color scheme, we're very blue people. We might be profile number 5 if you're coming from an Enneagram point of view. But at the end of the day, we need to be fed with information that allows us to do this. Okay. Now, the thing that stresses out the most, the reason why all finance people drink gallons of coffee, smoke, and the like, is because we feel blind. You cannot project a figure based on air. You can do it on trend analysis. You can do it on historics. But at the end of the day, if you cannot reflect or approximate what's happening in the terrain, your figure is as good as shit. Yeah. So this is what's causing us the daily stress, alongside with the fact that we need to deliver it by tonight. We need to deliver it by tomorrow. We have no time to imagine things. We have to get to the figure and report it as quick as possible. To that, there's the conflict, right? There is the Rahims of the world wanting more budget, more investment, more to do because they have a result to achieve, a project to deliver, a system to implement, a development to release. And at the same time, they're not given the resources to do it. Okay. So, how are we going to go about bridging the gap? First and foremost, we need to understand each other's language. Okay. And I'm going to illustrate it by types of presentations that float around. What you see here right now is a presentation provided to us by someone pitching a type of service of project. Have a guess what type of profile made this presentation?
Probably profile like me, but I wouldn't make it so busy.
Oh no, but it's eye-catching. You've got the colors popping, you've got the pictures, you've got you're charmed, you're smiling.
Yeah,
But then
the challenge is just tapping into this. I've seen a lot of these kind of presentations, flashy, cool, dynamic, buzzwords, a lot of buzzwords. Look, I learned a lot in the time I've in over the past 25 years working in quite complex programs where we had to maintain a budget, where we had to present back, and these kind of presentations, even nowadays, I still see them popping up. A product team coming up, we need to have more resources, and this is our plan, and this is whatever. But it's generally not built up based on factual results. So how are we going to pay for this? If you want to invest 100K, fine. But what is the return? And
indeed,
this is beautiful if you send it to a client as a brochure and tell them, look how good we are. But it doesn't actually contribute, from my perspective. And Jennifer, you can see I changed, huh?
oh my goodness.
But from my perspective, if I look at the budgeting I have my programs, the last program I did was a 180 million project. It's crazy. So it looks like a lot of money, but it still wasn't enough. It was enough to deliver parts of the program. And these kind of presentations, I've seen them coming from our product teams, trying to convince. It's beautiful, but it doesn't add value because I cannot convince my finance business partner to invest in something like this. I cannot convince the CEO to invest in something if I get something like this.
That's right. Because clearly, this presentation is not telling anybody what is the bottom line. Are you triggering growth on your top line? Are you triggering EBITDA growth? Are you going for the full profit line? What is it you're trying to achieve? This is just floating pretty slides. But likewise, I'll show you another collage of slides that float around. And this is from another point of view. Instead of commercially, here we're going from a process point of view. Now, you might think, okay, Jennifer, this is more to the point. We've got a roadmap, we've got a time period, we've got elements identified, we've even got some figures floating around. But is this bridging the gap?
Absolutely not.
And this is something that people try to understand. Information or data is not necessarily enough to get someone to understand one another. You can, this is now a software example, but let's take it to manufacturing. You can present a big messy Excel full of columns of resources, inventory and work in progress goods and the like. It won't mean anything unless you get to what is the financial person trying to achieve. Reduction in cost, augmentation in revenue, EBITDA growth. What is it we're trying to achieve? And thus, I'm going to give you an example of something that has been done with finance. Okay. And there immediately you'll see it's not one person or a specific department that generated the presentation. It has been a combination of departments working on this particular slide, where you're also combining operational data, objective data, and financial data to get to your message. You're translating what your idea is into what's in it for the company, the department, and yes, finance translates that as figures in P&L.
But what I like about this is that in general, when we are pitching programs, and also from DNA perspective, when we work with our clients, data is one thing, but making data understandable is something else. Second thing is that you cannot go and request for a budget just from a single view. It always requires a multi-view. What is the return on investment? Where do we want to go? What does it mean financially? Where do we see the benefits? What are the growth numbers? And you see it coming back also in the slide. What I like is that you have the contributors from different teams also involved. This is textbook how we should do it. But then the question is, why don't we?
Time, ignorance, and to be honest, company culture. At the end of the day, to ensure that you've got everyone on board, it takes time to go find out who's the right person, who has the knowledge, and who is willing to cooperate. I think we can illustrate through our Zura RevPro time together, Rahim. You need people that have specific knowledge in the field, but equally you need the person with the global overview. It was a very big project which needed a lot of funding, but we could not say that, okay, you know what, I will limit my funding for software at this amount without looking at the global objective of the company. The global objective of the company was to render the financial operations and commercial side a seamless, lean process. Consequently, and this is where you then start engaging with your finance people, is what objectives are we meeting for you, and how can you help us with the budget in order to do it? The envelope starts to change because you don't have two departments with separate goals. You have two departments with the same goal.
I think this is a vital one. And you take a Zura RevPro program. That was actually one of the most challenging programs I think we both had to complete because we didn't only have the budgeting, but we also had the organization. We had two organizations being merged into one, different cultures, different objectives, different wishes, a lot of frustration across the teams, and in the middle, we were trying to bridge basically the gap between all of those different teams, getting them together. So that was basically the post-mortem part. From a budgeting perspective, we didn't have clear guideline. We didn't have a clear target. It was a bit flux. During the journey. I see Tom mentioning, okay, but is it finance job to translate the business case into P&L or balance sheet lingo? I do not expect that my sales blokes to speak that lingo. The question from Tom in the chat.
Do we expect sales to comprehend the full impact of finance? For instance, how to project sales, how to project how the sales translates into a revenue, when to grab which costs? No, not necessarily. However, it is essential that you partner with finance in order that they can present to you a winning business case. Okay, if you can get them to cooperate in a way that what you'll end of the day be able to present to your board of directors has already a review or seal of approval from your finance team, that will be a strong and winning business case. You do not want to find yourself in a situation where you, after having done all the work and presented the business case, crunched the numbers, the CFO looks at the business case and says, but that and that hasn't been thought of, and it's out of the game. It is going towards the cooperation. There are certain things your salespeople will never be able to do, but you require a finance person in the team who is willing to play the game with you.
I do think, also answering Tom's question, of course, I would not expect sales to be able to translate the finances and P&Ls. I wouldn't expect that. What I do expect is that coming up with the business case, like Jennifer mentioned, it's something you do together. There is a financial consequence, and every business runs on their finances. If you're not bringing enough money in, or if the investment is not real or valid, then there will be no investment. We have to defend it towards our executive team, maybe even the board of directors, maybe even our investors. We need to come up with a plan on a longer term, and we can only do that if we work together. Now, the extra element, I think, in some of the recent programs was that it wasn't just finance and operations. It was finance, operations, sales. Actually, all teams had were impacted by the change we were implementing, and this was a software implementation change. And all those teams were impacted. All the ideas they had on customer experience, which they wanted to push forwards, basically had to go on hold. So we got frustration. We got challenges all over the place. And one of the things which I often see in my programs is that if we make strategic choices, there is also an impact on other places. Keeping your business case and your partnership with finance between the requester, basically sales or operations, on a specific business case without understanding the bigger picture is also a major challenge. So Tom, on your question, do we expect sales to do that? No. But what we do expect is that when sales comes in and, for instance, works with finance, that we don't only have a finance business partner, but that we have a mingle of people who will be impacted by this change. What do you often hear? We are delivering a new product. We're going to tackle a new market. Great. So we are hiring developers. We are hiring infrastructure. We're getting the project done. Then the project goes live, and we don't have people to support it. So that whole line of what is the impact of certain changes within your organization when you build a business case, not only on the requester, and in this example, we take sales, but it also could be the customer experience team. How will that impact also in the longer term? And I think those, if you look at where do we see a gap in investments and where do we need finance, because finance can help us calculate what the implications would be, bringing them together. Does that answer your question, Tom? I know you're in an open floor, so put it in the chat, yes or no. Hi, Linda. Welcome. You're on mute, but you can interject if you want. Taking it forward. So
it's a very valid point you make there, Rahim, is this notion of cross-functional teams. And I can only promote that because even when you start from an operational point of view or commercial point of view, reaching out to finance, you need to understand that their life has been figures, tables, sheets, processes. They did not yet fully comprehend what is behind all of these figures. Okay, there's a learning curve to be had by both departments, but it makes the project that much richer because in cross-functional teams, illustrating the example Rahim took, is if you've deployed something, immediately finance will start reflecting on, okay, what is your operating cost versus your on top capex cost? What can smooth out your figure? What is a pure development notion versus what is a pure cash out notion? And on which are you going to be judged? These are notions that if you can incorporate a team that can identify how certain processes impact your target setting, your budgeting, your P&L at the end of the day, you will be able to tell the story as an entrepreneur. You won't tell it from a silo point of view. You will tell it holistically from the point of view of a CEO. Why should this particular project go forward? Because perhaps you won't generate anything top line, but you will eliminate a sunk cost, a population that is there today, but that can be optimized or improved in another fashion in order to improve your EBITDA. Okay. In any corporate structure, cash and EBITDA. Why? Because at the end of the day, they want to pull out their cash, right? They want their dividends, they want their reinvestment components. And these are the types of jargon people need to be familiar with. And do we expect to know each other's jobs? Obviously not. I can tell you when I went in with the project teams into the coding, I would sit there through PIs and the like, knowing that there's a lot said that I would never know what they mean. However, I did know what the consequences were of that particular coding not being applied, yes or no, into the daily process. Would that cut my margin? Would that improve my margin? Okay, but this is a learning curve and a mindset that you need to have where cross-functional teams can collaborate, understanding each other's needs, because there are certain critical periods, close of the month, close of the period, where your finance people will be more demanding on you than vice versa. We will be there on the phone saying, give me the figure now, because the reporting needs to be done at that particular point.
I remember your beautiful calls at the end of the night.
But we're all defending a common goal, right? We're all defending, have we reached that target? Can I publish that target?
I think what's going to be important. We got some questions from people already in the polls we did in the past weeks. One of the common questions we got back. Now we have a better understanding based on your PowerPoint regarding the different types of communication, how that works with finance. Is how do we keep? Look, we always talk about empowered cultures. People are empowered. And everyone has an empowerment within their own role, but generally there's a wall. With the finance function, operations function, customer service, whatever, those are all thick walls. One of the questions which came in last week from Michelle, she mentioned that what I'm struggling with is those walls are massive walls. How do I make sure in a company which has silos, how can I start building up the collaboration with those cross-departmental teams, ramping up towards building a business case? What would be your suggestion for that, especially when you have a really siloed organization?
My recommendation would be gifts. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not a ethics point of view from a SOX. It's not at SOX risk here. But what I mean with gift is what helps is if you allow people to look into your world. For instance, invite them to a meeting. Invite them to a meeting where you frame, look, we would like you to join us to tackle a particular question we had in mind from your point of view. You do not need any experience in what we do, but we need your collaboration and understanding. How would you tackle this problem differently? Give them free trainings or free webinars in the sense where you include them in a particular situation that will allow them to contribute. These are there just to create the link. If they know your name, they know what you're doing, they will be more apt to reach out to you and give you advice than any other things. We are today in a culture where we're full of instant communications, whether you are in a company that has a portal with a chatter, or whether it's through Teams or even WhatsApp groups, it allows you to give each other instant feedback below the radar. This does not need to follow big streams of management where your manager mandates you to go and do something. Not at all. This can be done below the radar where the person is free to contribute and it's not judged on a comment that they can make that will look badly on them.
I think we touched in an earlier conversation before also on the topic that decisions are not made in the boardroom. So when you come up with ideas or concepts, it's really important that you at really early stage start making that challenge, making it verbal, making it known, getting people involved. Starting with, oh, next week we need to have XYZ. That never flies because people are busy with their day to day. They don't know anything. You have to go through extensive meetings while saying, look, guys, we have an issue. We need to fix it in the next 6 months. Let's brainstorm. Let's get those people in to see how we can build that case. How can we work together to get it done? Check the impact. Because when you get more people involved and the story gets a life, gets a face, it makes it a lot easier at the end to get your budgets and get things done. So when talking about bridging the gap, my recommendation in general is don't come up with an idea and a business case on day one or basically day X when you already have thought about everything. Use other people in your thought process. Get their expertise already involved in the thinking. So by the time you get towards your business case or by the time you select your supplier and get all your quotes in to deliver, by that time, everybody is already ready to jump. Decisions are not made in the boardroom. They're made already in the offline.
Equally applies to finance. I can tell you from all the budget cycles we've had, it is getting increasingly difficult to make a top-down call plus 10%, minus 5%. No matter what number finance will throw at you, it is very difficult right now to make it a binding measure to a business. More and more finance needs to go down into the nitty-gritty of the business to comprehend. There are certain situations where you've got, especially if you're selling software, you've got obligations to the customers that will create that expense, you know? And it's not because finance says, oh, EBITDA wise or cash wise, we need that much, that it will be feasible, because at the end of the day, you put a budget that you can't follow, both parties are going to be in trouble. Like that I can guarantee. It is essential to integrate, make the figure mean something, because then throughout the year, if you need to tweak the figure, you can, because there's an action linked to the figure.
Nice. Let's open up the floor for questions. Linda, thanks for joining. If you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself. If you don't, you can stay muted, of course. You have an easy day today, Jennifer.
Looks like.
Limited questions. Hey, Jennifer, just to close down, we are 30 minutes into our lunch and learn with the end of our time. What will be the 3 main tips you would like to give the audience as a learning?
I think the most important one is get involved, get people involved. First of all, invite the relevant finance people to contribute. No obligations. This cannot be a top-down type of decision, but get them to contribute in creating your business case, in solving the problem at hand. I think the wealth of knowledge you will get there will be exceptional. Second thing that I can advise is understand each other's needs. Yeah, because it's one thing inviting them, then you have to maintain the relationship. In maintaining the relationship, you need to understand there's a quid pro quo in everything we do. So if they can advise you on how to position the figures, how to improve it, and do that extra mile work, be attentive also to their needs, that when it comes to reporting or following a specific rule, they will need you to comply in a certain way. For instance, draft the contract a certain way or provide that data in a certain way. And ultimately, it's about whether or not you can create the culture, the company culture, that we're all working towards similar goals. Yeah. Finance also has goals. It's either top line growth, EBITDA growth, cash generation. EBITDA growth is cost reduction, so lean and mean working. These are things we can have in common. And so finding together what the solution could be to improve the figure, I think is a way that you'll see that it'll make working much smoother with finance instead of hitting up against that wall that is a wall of policies, figures, and black and white thinking.
Love it, love it. For me, the biggest takeaway I think I want to highlight is actually your first one. You need to build your network internally. You need to work closely together, even when you don't need each other at a certain point in time. Because the only way to really get your idea or concept over the fence is if you have all the teams involved being a partner in the building of the case, the delivering of the solution, etc., etc. And that partnership is really important. Like Tom mentioned, are there not too many silos? I agree. The bigger the organization gets, the more silos we get, the more we hear it's not my responsibility. And then the accountability also drops. But on the other side of the fence is if we really want to drive improvements, the corporate strategy on wherever you want to go, grow 5-10% per year, reduce cost XYZ, every person within the organization is involved in that perspective. And I would expect that on all levels, their OKRs or whatever goal setting methodology they use is linked to that approach. But most importantly, do not go to finance on the last moment. Do not engage with them at the last moment. The earlier you do it, the better your case is. And I remember from our engagements, Jennifer, when we were talking, I think we were talking about the Service Cloud investment at a very early stage. So I think I was actually advocating it a year before we actually got it in the process. But my business case was not made by me. Actually, you made the business case. I just provided you the information. So you made my life a lot easier because your lingo was the lingo the CFO actually wanted to hear, and not the lingo I would put in as the beautiful slide you just demonstrated before, the black one. But that was really helpful. If there are no more questions from the people in the audience, I want to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for contributing to our Lunch and Learn. For the people who are going to watch this or listen to this later, we will provide some links to Jennifer's profiles if you want to connect or engage with her, want to ask some advice. I think she will be happy to help. We will also put the videos on different channels, so you can also watch it later or listen to it. It's Friday afternoon. I think it's time for most of us, actually Jennifer and I were talking about it, sneaking to go and drink a lovely wine. But I want to wish everyone a lovely weekend. And again, thank you, Jennifer, for doing this with us.
It's my pleasure. And if anyone is looking for the ultimate tip to convince finance, sharing a bottle of wine always does the trick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.